Have you ever noticed how the air shifts when you finally stop reacting? The moment you decide to step back, take a breath, and just watch without giving them the emotional fuel they desperately crave. It feels like peace at first, doesn't it? But beneath that quiet surface, a dangerous trap is being carefully set. If you don't know what to look for, you'll walk right in. You have probably spent months, maybe even years, trying to explain your feelings to them. You gave them your tears, your frustration, and your endless patience. But one day, something inside you just snapped. You realized that your words were falling on deaf ears. So, you stopped caring. You became unbothered. And that is exactly when the real psychological game begins. When a narcissist sees that you are no longer triggered by their antics, they don't just accept it and move on. That is not how their broken internal wiring works. To them, your newfound indifference is not a boundary. It is an act of war. They need your emotional chaos to feel alive and in control. Without your reactions, they are left staring into their own empty void. This is where everything takes a very dark turn. Most people think that walking away or going gray rock brings immediate safety. And yes, it is absolutely the right thing to do for your healing. But you have to understand what is happening on the other side of that silence. The narcissist is studying your lack of response. They are watching you, calculating their next move. They cannot stand the fact that you have reclaimed your power. Your silence is deafening to them, a loud reminder that their illusions of superiority are failing. So they lay a trap. It is not an obvious one. It is subtle, insidious, and designed to look completely harmless. They want to pull you back into the mud without making it look like they are the ones dragging you. You might start noticing small, weird behaviors. Maybe they suddenly agree with something you said weeks ago. Perhaps they leave a seemingly innocent comment on your social media, or send a text that feels completely out of character. It feels so minor that you might even question if you are just overthinking things. But make no mistake, this is a highly calculated test. They are dropping tiny breadcrumbs to see if you will follow the trail. They want to know if that unbothered exterior is real, or if it is just a mask you are wearing. If you respond, even with a simple, "thank you," or a quick nod, they have their answer. They know the door is still slightly cracked open. And to a narcissist, a cracked door is an open invitation to invade. We need to look deeply at why this specific trap is so dangerous for survivors. It works because it targets your core humanity. You are naturally empathetic, forgiving, and hopeful. When they act vaguely normal or slightly vulnerable, your instinct is to mirror that decency. You think, maybe the storm has finally passed. Maybe we can just exist peacefully from now on. But that hope is the exact weapon they are aiming directly at your heart. They do not want peace. They want compliance. They are testing the structural integrity of the walls you have built. If they push gently and the wall shakes, they know exactly where to strike next. Your unbothered state terrified them, so they manufactured a fake truce to see if you would soften. And this is just the beginning of the trap. Once they confirm you are willing to engage, the real punishment begins. Because a narcissist never forgives you for making them feel powerless. They are going to make sure you pay for every single moment you made them feel insignificant. Let us break down exactly how this psychological ambush unfolds when you let your guard down. To truly understand this trap, you have to step inside the mind of the narcissist. Imagine living in a house where the mirrors only show a perfect reflection if someone else is holding them up. The moment you drop the mirror, their reflection shatters. They see their true, flawed self, and it is horrifying to them. Your indifference forces them to look at their own ruin. They rely on your emotional supply to regulate their own fragile self-esteem. When you are crying, arguing, or defending yourself, they feel powerful. They feel like a god pulling the strings of a very small puppet. But when you become unbothered, you cut those strings entirely. You are no longer dancing to their chaotic tune. You are just standing there, silent and still. This stillness creates a psychological emergency for them. They do not process your silence as a boundary, they process it as an attack on their survival. It is an existential threat. They panic because if they cannot control you, they do not know who they are. They must restore the old dynamic, not because they miss you, but because they desperately miss feeling important. So they reach into their toxic toolbox. They know your triggers better than anyone else. But since the old triggers stopped working, they have to invent new ones. They realize that anger won't work anymore. You have grown immune to their rage. So they pivot. They try to weaponize your sense of guilt, your deep empathy, and your natural desire to be a reasonable human being. They will craft a scenario where your continued silence makes you look like the bad guy. They might feign a minor crisis or act like they are deeply confused by your coldness. They want to provoke a reaction by playing the victim. It is incredibly manipulative. They are trying to make you feel like your perfectly healthy boundaries are actually cruel and abusive punishments. This is the core of their psychological trap, role reversal. If they can make you feel guilty for being unbothered, they win. They want you to break your silence just to explain that you aren't trying to be mean. But the moment you start explaining yourself, the game is over. You are back in the cycle. You are handing them the power to judge your intentions all over again. Think of it like a spider testing its web. They pluck one single strand of silk to see if the trapped insect will wiggle. If you rush to defend your character, if you try to prove that you are not being malicious, you are wiggling. You are showing them that their opinion of you still matters. And if their opinion still matters, it means they still have leverage over your mind. It is a brilliant, twisted strategy. They force you to choose between protecting your peace and protecting your reputation. For a survivor who has spent years being misunderstood, the urge to clarify is intoxicating. You want to say, "I am not being cruel, I am just protecting myself." But you must resist that urge. To a narcissist, any explanation is just another confession. Your unbothered energy is like kryptonite to their false self. It strips away their delusions of grandeur. They want to prove that your strength is fake. They want to expose your peace as a temporary illusion. Because if they can break your calm, it proves to them that they are still the master of your universe. It reassures them that you are still chained to their sickness. Do you see how insidious this is? They are not trying to connect with you. They are trying to infect you. They want to inject just enough doubt into your mind so that you willingly dismantle your own defenses. They know they cannot break the door down anymore, so they are gently knocking, hoping you will unlock it from the inside out of sheer habit and misplaced compassion. Let's look at how this shift in power actually plays out in real time. Imagine you are at a family gathering or a work event. The narcissist walks in. Usually, this is the moment your stomach drops. But this time, you feel nothing. You glance at them and go right back to your conversation. You are genuinely unbothered. Across the room, they instantly notice the difference. They feel the invisible tether between you snap. They might try to laugh loudly, command the room's attention, or drop a subtle, passive-aggressive remark meant only for your ears. But you don't flinch. You don't look down and you don't glare. You simply exist, completely unaffected by their performance. In that single, quiet moment, the entire power dynamic flips upside down. You can almost see the panic behind their eyes. The smirk falters for just a fraction of a second. They suddenly realize that they are playing to an empty theater. The audience they relied on for validation has walked out. It is a profound psychological blow. They are standing there, exposed, holding a script that you flatly refuse to read from anymore. It drives them crazy. So they spring the trap. They approach you with a soft smile and a gentle tone. They ask a seemingly innocent question about your life, or maybe they offer a compliment that sounds just real enough to be confusing. They are wearing the mask of a friendly, reformed person. It is a stunning pivot. Just yesterday they were a monster, and today they are a calm, rational adult. This is the turning point where so many survivors get caught. The sheer whiplash of their new demeanor is disorienting. Your brain scrambles to make sense of the sudden warmth. You think, maybe they finally get it. Maybe they changed. That thought is the bait. The moment you entertain the idea that this fake version of them is real, you are stepping right onto the landmine. If you take the bait and engage, the trap snaps shut. You offer a polite, genuine response. You let your guard down just an inch, offering a small piece of your true self. And just like that, you can see the victory flash in their eyes. The warmth instantly vanishes, replaced by that familiar, cold deadness. They got exactly what they wanted. They prove they still own you. And then the punishment drops. Having secured your attention, they deliver a calculated strike. It might be a backhanded compliment that targets your deepest insecurity, or a sudden, harsh criticism that leaves you breathless. They build you up for 10 seconds just to push you off the ledge, ensuring the fall hurts infinitely worse because you dared to trust them again. You are left standing there, reeling from the sudden impact. Your heart races, your face flushes, and the peace you fought so hard for is shattered into a million pieces. They walk away with a subtle smirk, their energy fully restored by your emotional distress. They fed off your shock. The trap worked flawlessly. You were unbothered, and they successfully destroyed that peace. This is why you can never underestimate their need for retaliation. When you show them that you are unbothered, you inflict a narcissistic injury. They feel deeply humiliated by your independence. And a narcissist will never, ever let a perceived humiliation go unpunished. They will wait in the weeds for as long as it takes, crafting the perfect moment to make you pay for it. They want you to learn a very specific, devastating lesson, that your peace is not yours to keep. They want to condition you to feel terrified of your own strength. If they can punish you every single time you find your footing, they hope you will eventually stop trying to stand up. It is a brutal, exhausting war of attrition designed to completely break your spirit over time. The aftermath of falling into this trap is deeply painful. It is not just the sting of their insult, it is the heavy, suffocating weight of self-betrayal. You knew better. You swore to yourself you wouldn't let them in again. Yet, there you are, replaying the interaction in your head, wondering how you fell for it. The shame you feel in these moments is completely paralyzing. This shame is exactly what they want you to feel. They want you to turn your anger inward. While you are busy beating yourself up for slipping, they are walking away scot-free, high on the power of having manipulated you. Your internal collapse is their ultimate victory. They have successfully transferred their own inner turmoil and toxic shame directly into your nervous system. You might find yourself spiraling back into old, toxic habits. The anxiety returns, keeping you awake at night. You start obsessively analyzing their words, trying to decode a message that was nothing more than a weapon to begin with. Your unbothered state feels like a distant dream, replaced by the familiar, frantic hypervigilance of survival mode. You are trapped in the maze. And this is where the physical consequences truly manifest. Trauma doesn't just live in your thoughts, it lives deeply in your body. The sudden adrenaline spike of their ambush leaves you drained, exhausted, and physically sick. Your immune system crashes, your muscles tense, and your stomach stays in knots. They have effectively hijacked your biology from across the room. Look at the chilling reality of what they have accomplished. With just a few well-timed words, they dismantled weeks or months of your hard-earned healing. They didn't have to raise their voice or throw a punch. They simply exploited your basic human decency and turned your empathy against you. It is a psychological crime that leaves absolutely no visible bruises for the world. Friends and family rarely understand the severity of this collapse. They might tell you to just ignore it, or say it was just a minor comment. They do not realize that it wasn't a comment, it was a psychological sniper shot. They don't see the weeks of silent preparation the narcissist put into finding the exact right angle to shatter your armor. You suffer in total silence. When you stay in this collapsed state, the narcissist becomes emboldened. They view your devastation as permission to push even harder next time. The traps will become more frequent, more elaborate, and much more damaging. They will recruit flying monkeys, twisting the narrative to ensure that any attempt you make to distance yourself makes you look completely unstable and crazy. This is the dark, unflinching truth about toxic abuse. It does not stop just because you decide you are done playing. The game only ends when you completely remove yourself from the board and refuse to acknowledge the dice. As long as you remain in their orbit, even as a silent observer, you are a target. Your unbothered state must be permanent and protected at all costs. You cannot afford to underestimate their commitment to your destruction. They do not have deep passions or genuine friendships to distract them. Their entire existence revolves around securing dominance over the people around them. When you slipped out of their grasp, you became their primary obsession. They will spend all their waking hours figuring out how to break you again. But knowing this is your greatest advantage. Once you see the mechanics of their trap, it loses its invisible power. You realize that their calm demeanor isn't growth, it is just a different hunting tactic. Their sudden interest in your life is not care, it is reconnaissance. Seeing the trap for what it truly is prevents you from ever stepping onto that hidden landmine again. Moving from this dark realization into true healing requires a radical shift in your mindset. You must accept that your unbothered nature cannot be a performance. It cannot be a mask you wear just to prove a point to them. If you are only pretending to be indifferent while secretly waiting for their reaction, you are still playing their game. True indifference is deeply silent. Real unbothered energy does not care if the narcissist notices it. It does not look back to see if they are watching. When you are genuinely healed, their attempts to bait you feel laughable, not threatening. You see the breadcrumbs they drop, and you simply walk right over them without breaking your stride. You don't feel anger, and you don't feel fear. You feel utterly nothing. Achieving this state of total emotional neutrality takes immense practice. You have to mourn the illusion of who you thought they were, so you are never tempted to look for that fake person again. You must build internal boundaries made of solid steel. When they try to trigger your empathy, you remind yourself that feeding a parasite will never turn it into a beautiful butterfly. You are allowed to protect yourself. You do not owe anyone an explanation for your silence, especially not the person who taught you that your voice doesn't matter. Let them think you are bitter. Let them spin wild stories to their flying monkeys about how cold and heartless you have become. Their fictional narrative about your life is no longer your problem to solve or correct. Every time you refuse to take the bait, you are rewiring your nervous system for peace. You are teaching your brain that you are safe, that you are in control, and that their chaotic energy cannot penetrate your reality. It is a quiet, powerful revolution happening entirely inside your own mind. You are taking back the vital life force that they spent years slowly draining away. As you hold the line, something miraculous begins to happen. The fog lifts. You start to remember who you were before they injected their poison into your life. You rediscover your passions, your confidence, and your unique voice. You realize that your empathy is a beautiful gift, but it belongs only to those who have proven themselves worthy of holding it with care and respect. The narcissist will eventually realize that the trap has permanently failed. When they see that their words bounce off you like pebbles against a fortress, they will give up. They are emotional predators, and predators do not waste energy on prey they cannot break. They will wander off to find an easier target, leaving you entirely alone. And that silence will feel truly beautiful. Your unbothered state is not just a defense mechanism, it is your ultimate superpower. It is the shield that guarantees they can never destroy you again. You have walked through the absolute darkest valleys of psychological warfare, and you survived. You didn't just survive, you evolved. You decoded their twisted game, and you chose to simply put down the controller and walk away. So the next time they smile, ask an innocent question, or try to gently knock on the door of your life, you will know exactly what to do. You won't panic, and you won't explain yourself. You will just look at the trap, recognize it for the desperate manipulation that it is, and keep walking forward. You hold all the power now, and you are never handing it back to them ever again. You have fought too hard for this peace to let anyone trick you out of it. The hardest part of the journey is over, and the rest of your life is finally yours to design. Keep your boundaries firm, keep your eyes open, and never forget the brutal lessons they forced you to learn. They built a trap expecting you to fall, but they didn't realize they were teaching you how to fly.